Majority Leader.
The Senate had been voting on the Supreme Court's decision to block Ms. Duterte's impeachment trial, debating for hours into the night ahead of the vote. The country's apex ruling body last month called for a halt to the trial, saying it is unconstitutional to have multiple impeachment proceedings in a year. For more, CNA's Buena Bernal joins us live from Metro Manila. Buena, what exactly does archiving the case mean, and what do we expect to happen with efforts to impeach Ms. Duterte?
Well, the impeachment case against the embattled sitting Vice President Sara Duterte is technically considered dead now that it has been archived by the Philippine Senate. But there are still a couple of possibilities. One, an impeachment complaint still can be filed after that one-year ban on multiple impeachment proceedings against the same official lapses by February next year. Two, a criminal charge can still be filed anytime because that is a separate judicial mechanism of accountability independent of an impeachment proceeding. And three, there is the possibility of this archived case being reopened because there is a pending appeals process before the Supreme Court. So archiving, instead of fully dismissing the case, enables the Senate to reopen this case should the Supreme Court overturn its decision. And this is why the deliberations at the Legislative Caucus Wednesday took hours. The initial motion was a motion to dismiss the case, and it was later on amended after hours of deliberation to what is essentially a motion to archive. So they tried to discuss how exactly can the Senate adhere with a court ruling without fully dismissing the fact that there is an appeals process. It was in July 25 when the High Court nullified those articles of impeachment against the Vice President for being violative, according to the justices, of a constitutional provision that disallows multiple impeachment proceedings within a span of a year. And there were actually 4 impeachment complaints filed against the Vice President. Now, that appeal before the High Court also involves a request for an oral argument. An oral argument will enable the petitioners and respondents to publicly, verbally argue before the justices. So it's a wait and see if that request would also be granted. That is also a possibility, an oral argument before the Supreme Court. Now, on Wednesday, it was over 6 hours of deliberation and explanation of votes casted, and that concluded in a 19-4-1 vote. 19 in favor of archiving, 4 against, and 1 abstained. And those in favor argued that the Senate as a body needed to align with the Supreme Court ruling, which said that the Senate never acquired jurisdiction over this case because the case was void from the very beginning for failing to abide by due process. And therefore, even before it was transmitted from the lower chamber of Congress, the House of Representatives, to the Senate, it was already void. But those against the archiving, the 4 who are known to be aligned with the liberal democratic opposition of the Philippines, as well as the 1 who abstained, cited the High Court's appeals process. They argue that declaring the case dead via archiving would be premature, considering that there have been cases in the past when the Supreme Court en banc overturned its decision despite their initial decision being unanimous. Now, this July 25 ruling by the Supreme Court was a unanimous vote. 13 of 15 Supreme Court justices voted to nullify the articles of impeachment and to inhibit it.
Thank you, Buena, for those updates. That was Buena Bernal reporting live from Manila. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.